My grandmother always told me, if you are driving at night and you see a market where the ground is cold, but the air is hot, do not stop. Keep driving until your tires burn. I should have listened. My name is Femi. I was driving my Toyota Corolla along the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. It was 1 a.m. The road was empty, just a long stretch of black asphalt, surrounded by thick bush on both sides. Suddenly, my temperature gauge shot up to red. Smoke started pouring out of my hood. The engine sputtered, coughed, and died. I rolled to a stop on the shoulder of the road. It was pitch black. The silence of the forest was heavy, broken only by the chirping of crickets. I stepped out to check the engine, but the steam was too thick. I was stranded. Then I smelled it. The most delicious smell I have ever experienced in my life. It smelled of roasting meat, spicy yaji pepper, and frying onions. My stomach rumbled instantly. The hunger hit me like a punch, violent and sudden. I looked into the dark bush and saw a faint orange glow about 50 meters away. It looked like a village market. I grabbed my phone for a flashlight and walked towards the light. I pushed through the tall elephant grass until I stepped into a clearing. It was a market, but it was strange. There were about 20 stalls, all lit by old-fashioned kerosene lanterns. The flames flickered, casting long, dancing shadows on the trees. But the strangest thing was the noise. There was none. Nigerian markets are loud. People shout, haggle, laugh, and argue. But here? Silence. The sellers stood behind their tables like statues. They were all wearing heavy, dark clothes, even though the night was humid. No one was speaking. No one was looking at each other. I walked up to a stall selling suya. The meat was sizzling on the grill, dripping with oil and fat. The smell was intoxicating. It made my mouth water so much I had to wipe my chin. The Suya man was tall. He wore a wide-brimmed hat that hid his face in shadow. He was turning the meat with his bare hands, not feeling the heat of the fire. "Good evening," I said. "How much is one stick?" The man didn't look up. He didn't speak. He just picked up a stick of meat, huge, juicy chunks of beef, heavily coated in pepper, and held it out to me. "I have cash," I said, reaching for my wallet. The man shook his head slowly. He pointed at the meat, then pointed at my mouth. "Eat," his gesture said. I was too hungry to argue. I took the stick. The meat was hot, but not burning. I took the first bite. My God, it was an explosion of flavor. It was sweet, savory, salty, and spicy all at once. It melted on my tongue like butter. It was better than any food I had ever eaten in Lagos or Abuja. I finished the stick in 3 seconds. I wanted more. I needed more. "Give me another," I demanded, my voice shaking. The man handed me another, and another, and another. I ate like a wild animal. Grease ran down my chin. The pepper burned my lips, but I didn't care. I felt a rush of energy, a euphoria that made my head spin. I didn't notice that the other sellers had stopped what they were doing. The woman selling akara stopped frying. The man selling palm wine stopped pouring. They had all turned their heads. 20 pairs of eyes were watching me eat, and they were all smiling. I lost track of time. I lost track of myself. I wasn't Femi anymore. I was just a mouth, a stomach, a vessel to be filled. I moved from the suya stall to the next table. My legs felt heavy as if I was wading through deep mud, but my hunger pulled me forward like a magnet. The next stall was selling akara bean cakes, but these were not the golden brown balls I was used to. These were dark, almost black, frying in oil that didn't bubble. The oil was thick and red, like old engine oil. Or something else. The woman frying the akara was old. Her skin was wrinkled like dry bark. She wore a head tee that covered her forehead low, shadowing her eyes. Without asking, she used a wooden spoon to scoop a hot akara ball directly into my hand. It burned my palm, searing the skin, but the pain felt distant, like it was happening to someone else. I threw the hot ball into my mouth. It crunched. Inside it wasn't soft bean paste. It was gritty. It tasted of earth. It tasted of charcoal and wet sand, but to my bewitched tongue it was delicious. I swallowed it whole, feeling it slide down my throat like a stone. "Drink," the old woman whispered. Her voice sounded like dry leaves rustling together. "The food of the ancestors is dry. You must wash it down." She pointed to a large clay pot sitting on a woven mat nearby. A man was guarding it. He was shirtless, his chest covered in white chalk markings. He held a calabash cup. I stumbled over to him. "Palm wine," I croaked. My voice was thick with grease. "Give me palm wine." The man dipped the calabash into the clay pot. The liquid that came out was not the milky white of fresh palm wine. It was dark red, thick, viscous. It looked like Zobo drink, but it moved too slowly. I grabbed the cup and drained it in one gulp. The taste hit me instantly. Iron, metallic, salty. It tasted like a rusted nail. It tasted like the time I bit my tongue in primary school and my mouth filled with blood. I wiped my mouth with the back of my hand. A red smear was left on my skin. This is strong," I mumbled, my head spinning. The world was starting to tilt. The trees around the market seemed to be leaning in, their branches looking like long, skeletal fingers trying to touch me. "It is the vintage of the soil," the chalk-marked man said. He didn't move his lips when he spoke. The sound just arrived in the air. "Aged for 50 years in the coffin." I giggled. I thought it was a joke. "Coffin? You are funny, Hoga." I turned back to the Suya man. I wanted more meat. The hunger was not going away. It was getting worse. It was a knowing, painful emptiness that demanded to be filled. But as I walked back towards the grill, I dropped my car keys. Clatter. They fell into the dust. I bent down to pick them up. And that was when I saw it. From my lower angle, near the ground, I could see under the tables. They all had feet. But they were wrong. The Suya man's feet were backward. His heels were facing me, his toes pointing away, even though his body was facing me. The Akara woman didn't have feet at all. Her wrapper ended, and below it was just air. She was hovering 3 inches off the ground. The palm wine seller had hooves. Hairy, goat-like hooves where his human feet should be. The fog in my brain cleared for a second. The euphoria vanished, replaced by a cold, sharp terror. I froze, my hand hovering over my keys in the dirt. I slowly looked up at the Suya meat on the grill. Really looked at it this time. It wasn't beef. The pieces were long and slender. They looked like fingers. There was a piece that looked unmistakably like a human ear, charred and seasoned with pepper. My stomach lurched. The heavy ball of akara, the metallic wine, the strange meat, it all churned inside me violently. I stood up slowly, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. The silence had returned. Every single person in the market had stopped moving. They were all looking at me. And now, under the flickering lantern light, I saw their faces clearly. The Suya man didn't have a face in shadow. The palm wine seller smiled, and his mouth kept opening wider and wider until it reached his ears, revealing rows of sharpened, filed teeth. You have not paid your bill. I took a step back. I left my wallet in the car, I lied, my voice trembling. We do not take money, the Suya man said. His voice came from a slit that suddenly opened in his smooth face. We take life force. You have eaten the spirit food. Now you belong to the market. I turned and ran. I ran towards the darkness of the bush, towards where I thought the road was. But as I ran, I felt my legs getting heavier. My body felt sluggish. My skin felt tight. I looked down at my hands as I ran. My skin was turning gray. The color was draining out of me. I was becoming like them. I ran until my lungs burned like fire, but the air I sucked in gave me no relief. It was thick, humid air, smelling of wet leaves and ancient decay. The elephant grass sliced at my arms and face, leaving stinging cuts, but I didn't bleed. That was the first sign that I was truly lost. I looked at the fresh scratch on my forearm. There was no red blood, just a dry gray opening in my skin, like a crack in a clay pot. I stumbled over a tree root and crashed hard onto the forest floor. My stomach violently revolted. The Suya and the palm wine I had consumed were fighting inside me. They felt heavy, like I had swallowed stones. I rolled onto my knees and retched. I tried to vomit the evil food out of my system. Hjorg. What came out of my mouth was not food. It was ash. Dry, gray ash, mixed with wriggling white maggots. They spilled out of my throat onto the dirt, writhing in the moonlight. I choked, coughing up more dust, clawing at my tongue to get the taste of the grave out of my mouth. I had eaten the food of the dead, and now I was becoming a tomb. I tried to stand up, but my legs felt numb. Not the numbness of pins and needles, but the numbness of wood. I hit my thigh with my fist. I couldn't feel the impact. Help! I screamed. Somebody help me. My voice sounded distant, muffled, as if I were shouting from inside a sealed box. The forest swallowed the sound instantly. I forced myself to keep moving. I had to find the road. I had to find my car. I saw a light in the distance. Not the orange glow of the market, but a pale white light. The road, I whispered. Thank God. I limped towards it, pushing through the dense undergrowth. The trees here were different. They were twisted, their bark looking like stretched human faces. The branches reached out like grasping hands, snagging my clothes. I broke through the bush into a small clearing. It wasn't the road. It was a graveyard of cars. There were old vehicles scattered everywhere, half buried in the earth. A rusted Peugeot 504, a crushed Volkswagen Beetle, a decay-covered Mercedes 190. These were the cars of people who had stopped before me, the people who had seen the market and eaten the food. I walked towards the Peugeot. The driver's side door was open. Sitting in the driver's seat was a figure. I approached slowly. Olga? Are you okay? The figure turned to look at me. He was still alive, but barely. He was fused to the car seat. Roots and vines had grown through his body, stitching his flesh to the leather upholstery. His skin was the color of charcoal. His eyes were milky white, blind to the world, but he seemed to sense my presence. You ate, didn't you? The man rasped. His voice sounded like grinding stones. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. I was hungry, It smelled so good. The man laughed, a dry, wheezing sound. The hunger is the trap, he whispered. The food is the seed. Once you plant the seed in your belly, you become part of the forest. He raised a hand, or what was left of it. His fingers had turned into wooden twigs. Look at me, he groaned. I stopped for a kara in 1998. I thought I would just eat and go. But when I tried to leave, the road was gone. The road is always gone. No, I cried, backing away. My car is just over there. I can find it. You can find the car, the tree man said. But you cannot leave. Your spirit is heavy now. Too heavy to cross back to the land of the living. Suddenly, the man convulsed. The vines wrapping around his chest tightened. He gasped in pain. They are coming, he warned, the market masters. They are coming to collect their harvest. As he spoke, the temperature in the clearing dropped. The air turned freezing cold. From the darkness of the bush behind me, I heard a sound. Thump, thump, drag, thump, thump, drag. It was the sound of the Suya seller, the one with the backward feet. He was tracking me. Hide, the tree man whispered, his head slumping forward as the life left him. Hide, or they will roast you next. I scrambled away from the cars, diving into a hollow beneath the roots of a massive iroko tree. I pulled my legs in, curling into a ball, trying to make myself as small as possible. I held my breath. Through the gaps in the roots, I watched. The Suya seller stepped into the clearing. He was huge, towering over the rusted cars. In one hand he held his long, sharp knife. In the other he held a lantern that burned with a green flame. He sniffed the air. He didn't have a nose, but the smooth skin of his face rippled as he scented me. He walked over to the Peugeot where the tree man sat. He raised his knife. Chop. He sliced off the tree man's wooden arm. The man didn't scream. He just crumbled into dust. The Suya seller picked up the wooden arm. He examined it. Then he placed it into a sack hanging from his waist. Fresh meat, the monster gurgled. He turned his faceless head towards the iroko tree where I was hiding. The green light of his lantern swung closer. He took a step towards me. Thump. He took another step. Thump. He knew where I was. I closed my eyes and prayed. I prayed to God. I prayed to my mother. I prayed for the sun to rise. But in the night market, the night lasts forever. I squeezed my eyes shut as the Suya man's hand reached into the hollow of the tree. His fingers were cold, like raw meat taken out of a freezer. They grazed my ankle. I didn't scream. I couldn't. My throat was clogged with the ash of the spirit food. I kicked out blindly. My shoe connected with his hand. Squelch. It felt like kicking wet clay. The monster hissed a sound like oil dropping into fire. He pulled his hand back for a split second. That was my chance. I scrambled out of the other side of the tree roots. Clawing my way through the dirt, I stood up on my numb, gray legs and ran. I didn't run away from him. I ran towards the sound I had heard earlier, a low, distant rumble. At first, I thought it was the growl of a beast, but as I listened closer, through the thumping of my own heart, I recognized it. It was a diesel engine. The heavy, rhythmic chugging of a trailer truck, the expressway. Come back, the forest whispered. The trees suddenly bent down, their branches lashing at my face like whips. The feast is not over. I ignored them. I ran blindly through the thorns. My clothes were torn to shreds. My skin was peeling off in gray flakes, revealing raw, colorless flesh underneath. I was fading away. I was becoming a ghost. Behind me, the heavy footsteps of the Suya man were getting faster. Thump, drag, thump, drag. He was not alone anymore. I could hear the scuttling sound of the Akara woman dragging her legless body through the leaves. I could hear the clopping hooves of the palm wine seller. The whole market was hunting me. I saw a break in the trees ahead, a patch of darkness that looked slightly less black than the forest. The road, I pushed my body to its limit. My lungs were screaming. "Jesus," I croaked, "Jesus." I burst out of the bush and onto the hard, cold asphalt. I collapsed on the white line of the shoulder. The asphalt felt rough and real against my cheek. It smelled of tar and rubber. It smelled of the living world. I looked back at the bush. The monsters were standing at the edge of the forest line. They could not step onto the tar. The road was a barrier they could not cross. The Suya man stood there, his faceless head twitching. The green flame of his lantern flickered and died. He raised his knife one last time, pointing it at me. Then he slowly faded backward into the mist, vanishing like smoke in the wind. I lay there on the road, gasping for air. A moment later, blinding lights flooded my vision. Whom? A massive Dangote cement truck slammed on its brakes, screeching to a halt just meters from my head. The driver jumped out, wielding a tire iron. "Who is that?" "Are you a thief?" he shouted, shining a flashlight on me. When the light hit me, the driver screamed and dropped the iron. "Blood of Jesus," he yelled, stepping back. I looked down at myself. I wasn't a man anymore. I was a skeleton wrapped in gray, papery skin. My eyes were sunken into my skull. My clothes were ancient rags, covered in cobwebs and dust. I looked like I had been dead for 50 years. "Help me," I whispered. I ate the food. The driver was a good man. He didn't leave me. He called the police, and they took me to the teaching hospital. I spent 6 months in the ICU. The doctors couldn't explain it. They said I was suffering from severe malnutrition and exposure. They said my stomach was filled with foreign matter, charcoal, sand, and decayed wood. They had to pump it out. I survived. My skin eventually turned back to brown, though it is scarred and wrinkled now. But the curse of the night market did not end there. You see, I am back home now. I am sitting in my kitchen, but I cannot eat. My wife cooks a juicy soup with pounded yam. It smells delicious to her. But to me, it smells like rotting garbage. I try to put a spoon of rice in my mouth, and it tastes like ash. I try to drink water, and it tastes like vinegar. The only time my appetite comes back is when I smell raw meat. When I walk past a butcher's shop, my mouth waters. When I see a stray goat on the road, my stomach growls with that violent, painful hunger I felt in the forest. I have to lock myself in my room at night, because last night, while my wife was sleeping beside me, she didn't smell like my wife. She smelled like Suya, and I found myself staring at her arm, wondering how it would taste with a little yaji pepper. So please, I am begging you, if you are driving at night, and you see a market where the silence is loud, do not stop, do not buy the meat, because once you eat from their table, you can never truly leave.